Press Secretary Jen Psaki is leaving her post and reportedly taking on a new role at MSNBC. Our chief White House correspondent James Rosen takes an in-depth look at the incoming White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre.
I just want to take the opportunity to celebrate and congratulate my friend, my colleague, my partner in truth, Karine Jean-Pierre.
Succeeding Jen Psaki as White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre brings more than 15 years of political experience. One of her earliest jobs placed her on the 2004 presidential campaign of Democratic Senator John Edwards.
And welcome, Barack Obama.
In the winning Obama-Biden campaigns of 2008 and 2012, Jean-Pierre served as a regional political director and a key aide in battleground states.
Look, I think that free speech, it should be everywhere.
By 2016, Jean-Pierre was a senior advisor to the far-left advocacy group MoveOn.org, and she became a commentator on NBC and MSNBC. She hosted events featuring leading progressives and forged connections that would later prove useful.
Good to see you. How are you?
Jean-Pierre joined the Biden campaign in May 2020 and ultimately served as chief of staff to vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris.
On our best days, we're rebuilding trust with the public.
As a deputy White House press secretary, Jean-Pierre has sometimes struggled at the podium, particularly on foreign affairs topics, as at her last on-camera briefing almost 3 months ago.
What I was saying, and just to be even clearer, is that in the past 10 days or so, when you look at what is happening at the border of Ukraine, we are seeing more than 100,000 troops there, and it's just been an everyday more and more troops.
Jean-Pierre will be the first black and openly gay person to serve as the top spokesperson for the White House.
And I can't wait to see you bring your own style and brilliance to this job.
But some conservatives point to past writings by Jean-Pierre attacking AIPAC, the pro-Israel lobby group. Others, a video she released to promote her memoir in 2019.
People like me walked through and for the first time felt like we belonged. The man who is now sitting in the building I used to work in hates everything that I am. A black, gay immigrant woman.
I know Donald Trump. You know Donald Trump. He doesn't hate anybody. He doesn't hate gay, black, immigrant women. In fact, here he is with Martina Navratilova, Naomi Campbell from Britain. We don't care about these things. You do. But you do to divide us.
When they're away from the harsh lights of the briefing room, White House press secretaries actually function a lot like reporters. In the hours leading up to a briefing, they task other departments, agencies, and sub-cabinet officials with providing talking points and answers on selected issues in case the news media should ask about them. Reporters call it fact-gathering, press secretaries call it collection, and it will tax the abilities and patience of Karine Jean-Pierre as surely as the press corps will. At the White House, James Rosen.
All right. Chief White House Correspondent James Rosen. Thank you, James. That is the future. But for a look back on the past, our John Gizzi caught up with the press secretary at a goodbye luncheon. Watch this.
What would you say is your biggest disappointment about the time you were there and in the administration in general?
Being a mom and recognizing what the pressures and challenges are on families across the country, lowering the cost of childcare, I would have felt really good about that. I mean, there are days, there's a reason that people are public servants and things they care very passionately about. And so getting that done, yes, would have felt really good. Obviously, hopefully, we'll still do it.
All right, John Gizzi actually joining us now from the North Lawn now with more on that. Very interesting, great question to her. Obviously, it's a difficult job as we've seen. We're going to talk to Sean Spicer in just a bit, but take us back to that moment there.
Well, after 15 months on the job as presidential press secretary, Jen Psaki is stepping down. She was Joe Biden's first press secretary and the 11th that I have covered since I came to the White House. Regarding yesterday, she was very open and candid with the reporters who covered her, admitting her disappointment not just on the Build Back Better bill, but in the fact that COVID kept the president in. And she said that the Joe Biden she knew loved to work the crowds, shake hands, and engage with people, and she did not get enough of watching him do that. A disappointment as she moves on. She's going to devote her time, as she said, to her 2 small children and most likely to television punditry. Like most of her modern predecessors, Jen Psaki is a political spokeswoman. That was her background. She was the traveling press secretary with John Kerry in his 2004 campaign, and 4 years later, she also traveled and spoke to the press for Barack Obama when he was a presidential candidate. Under President Obama, she served as White House Communications Director and as spokesperson for the State Department. So it was no surprise that at the world's most famous podium, Jen Psaki would be a spirited, combative, and at times very partisan spokesperson. She often came under fire in the crowded briefing room and became more cantankerous at a time that the seats were limited to 14 spots for reporters, and some of us had to revolve and share seats on different dates. It was later restored to the normal full capacity. Jen explained the administration's handling of the COVID crisis, of the tragic withdrawal from Afghanistan and the resultant turmoil in Kabul, and the administration's liberal domestic agenda. She celebrated the enactment of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, and as she said, had vast disappointment over the failure to pass Build Back Better. Circle Back Psaki is what some of us called her. Often when she didn't know an issue, Jen Psaki would say, "I'll circle back to you." Some complained that she never did. For my part, I can say I'm one reporter Jen Psaki circled back to, and she gave me a very strong administration statement on Rwanda's seizure of Hotel Rwanda hero Paul Rusesabagina. In addition, the liberal agenda of the Biden administration led to clashes with some reporters, and there was criticism she wouldn't call on certain reporters, including Newsmax. She said it's because we were in the back of the room. That never stopped other press secretaries. So Jen Psaki goes on, a figure that many of us certainly had our differences with, but we'll never forget. We all wish Jen well. Back to you.
Absolutely. All right, John Gizzi reporting live there. John, thank you. Joining us now is the host of Spicer & Company, Sean Spicer, also a former press secretary for Donald Trump. Good to see you, Sean, and thanks so much for coming on. What I just want to dive into today and what's happening is something that you have been in that very moment. A last day for a press secretary. I'm curious, obviously she's going to step up to the podium later today, but what went through your mind at that time knowing it was your last day? I know, is there a little camaraderie there with some of the reporters you may have sparred with in the past? What will today be like?
It's a great question, Sean. Good to be with you guys. For me, I felt as though a burden had been lifted. It was a very intense and trying time for me and my family. And so knowing that I was walking out, it was an opportunity to be with a staff and a team that I had grown very close to, both the press staff, the communications staff, and then several folks around the White House. So it's a time to say your goodbyes. It's a time to take one last stroll through places that you won't just be able to walk into. The thing that I said when I left the White House to folks, and there's a picture of it in the first book that I wrote called The Briefing, when you walk outside of those gates for the last time and they close and you don't have that White House ID, it doesn't matter what position you held or how well your face is known. You don't get to just walk back in again. So there's a sense that on that last day that you're trying to capture as many, walks through the colonnade or places that you've done a million times, to just remember those things for one last time without the intensity and the pace that has been going hand in hand with the job for the days that had preceded that. So I stopped by, I saw the president on my last day. We had a nice long chat. I was talking to my staff. We went out afterwards, but it was just a chance to walk through the White House that had been mostly very, very fast paced and look around and take things in for one last time.
Yeah, a kind of pause that's probably much needed. We know how quickly the news works, so definitely to keep up with it. I'm sure it was all a whirlwind. But Sean, as you look back on Psaki's performance behind the podium throughout the American public.
You know, the interesting thing about that, Emma, is my critique of Jen Psaki's tenure is less about what Jen did. Her job is to communicate, as any press secretary, the ideas and thoughts of the president or the administration. The job and the role of the press corps is to push back. And as Newsmax's own John Gizzi just said, her style was basically to shut out a lot of reporters. She focused on the front row, the ABCs, the Washington Post, the New York Times, to make sure that she never really got tough questions. So she limited sort of the scope of who she called on to ensure that she sort of had these really nice briefings. And I think that the press corps has let America down. The idea that they have not pressed further on some of these key issues, on the double statements, on the misstatements, all of the critique that they had of the Trump administration, they sit back, they allow Jen to sort of give her briefing, they take it down and they walk back. That rarely is anything pushed back upon at that, because she gets away with it. She doesn't call on anyone beyond those mainstream press folks, and they don't do anything to challenge it because, look, we got to remember, she came from CNN to the White House. She's going to MSNBC. The incoming press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, came from MSNBC and is married to someone from CNN. I mean, half of that front row, they've got a personal, very personal and collegial relationship with when they walk into that briefing room every day.
Yeah, that was actually my next question. Is that something that gets overlooked, or, you know, through the vetting process, you would think that maybe that would raise some red flags there with ties to various networks, but it seems like it really doesn't matter, especially in this White House, Sean.
No, I would say quite the opposite, Sean. I think it's a bonus. I mean, there was nobody that when we walked into the room, you know, John Gizzi was with a different publication at the time when I was press secretary, you know, and I'd call on him and some other folks. And believe me, when you take a John Gizzi question, you better come prepared, because he knows his facts. He's going to stump you from the right, the left, and every which way. And that's not the case now. And I think that the White House looks at it as a bonus. They walk in and they know that they've got CNN and MSNBC, the Washington Post, the New York Times, and so many of the others just wrapped around their finger, not going to push back on anything that they say policy-wise or misstatements that they make. And so quite the opposite. I think that is looked at as a very big positive in this White House.
And I know, Sean, you mentioned your critique for the press corps. The fact that we haven't seen those really important follow-up questions from other members of the press corps when they say, oh, I know you said this, but could we get some clarification on that? Those are so important. With this new press secretary, it does, in theory, offer the press corps a chance to sort of refresh and say, as we head into the midterms, maybe as a group, we can come together and ask those important questions that are needed to get out to the American public. Are you optimistic that perhaps there will be a change come the new press secretary?
Emma, unfortunately, I'm not. I mean, I just described Karine Jean-Pierre's relationships. I mean, she was an MSNBC employee before coming to the White House. She's married to a CNN reporter. These folks, look, one of the things that I will say about Jen, and this applies a little, tangentially now, is that they have a vested interest in not embarrassing Jen. They knew that they were hiring her to be a television host on MSNBC. So she limited the scope of the folks that she talked to. And when she looked down every day, whether it was Kristen Welker or Kelly O'Donnell from MSNBC, they knew that they now had a vested interest in protecting her brand. And that was something that is, similar. I mean, she's not going to do anything to harm CNN. CNN's not going to do anything to harm her because they've got this personal relationship that exists. So you're not going to see any additional pushback. And part of it goes back to not just the personal relationship, Emma, but the reality is that most of these reporters are far left, and they personally agree with the agenda and the policies of this administration. So they're shaking their head sort of like, oh, good, yeah, I agree with what you're doing. The difference with the Trump administration in particular is they were so personally opposed to the positions and the policies of the administration that it was very personal for them, some of the things that the Trump administration and President Trump were pushing.
Well, Trump would call on anyone. I mean, he practically made Jim Acosta's career now at the anchor desk, and he was heard from all the time, CNN. Yeah. I mean, he took everyone's questions. But either way, this is a brand new press secretary, at least deputy moving up to this role, Karine Jean-Pierre. Last day for Jen Psaki. Sean Spicer joining us live here. Sean, thank you. Always great to see you, sir.
Good to see you both. Thank you.
All right, don't forget to catch Sean Spicer and Company weekdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on Newsmax.